These two initiatives represent the largest investments in climate resilience in our nation's history. The Inflation Reduction Act will invest in our infrastructure and benefit the American public for the next generation. Since the act was signed in August, we're in the development stages, and our purpose today is to listen to you so that we can work in a collaborative manner and make informed decisions going forward. Our agenda today will include brief remarks from our senior leaders, a hydrology update, and an overview of the act. And then we're looking forward to hearing from you. And we respectfully ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes so that we can hear from as many as possible today with our limited time. Again, our purpose today is to listen to you. At this time, I am honored to introduce the Department of the Interior's Assistant Secretary for Water and Science, Ms. Tanya Trujillo.
Hello, thank you, Rob. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Tanya Trujillo. I'm the Assistant Secretary for Water and Science at the Department of the Interior. Very happy to be with all of you in this listening session. I am very appreciative of the work that has been compiled by the Bureau of Reclamation, led by their Commissioner, Camille Touton, to prepare for this session. I know we want to share information with you regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, but this is primarily a listening session. We are very interested in hearing your thoughts and views about how we may be able to utilize the Inflation Reduction Act to best address the drought conditions that we have in the West. And we have a primary focus initially on the Colorado River Basin per the direction that we have from Congress. Since we issued the 24-month study in August and identified the additional administrative actions we will be undertaking in that basin, we have continued to work on a variety of efforts to encourage conservation and protect the system. Last week, we were joined by Secretary Holland and Deputy Secretary Boudreaux in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where we were able to confirm our department's emphasis on the efforts we have underway. The Inflation Reduction Act is an additional historic investment towards achieving President Biden's ambitious goals to help us tackle the climate crisis. Combined with the bipartisan infrastructure law, these two appropriation packages represent some of the largest investments in climate resilience in our nation's history, and they provide a once-in-a-generation opportunity for us to work together with partners like you to address these conditions. Both of the laws underscore the Biden-Harris administration's all-of-government approach to helping to address our climate challenges and protect natural areas for the current generation and for generations to come. We take these challenges seriously, and we look forward to utilizing the new resources to be able to put together solutions on the ground. As demonstrated today by the listening sessions, Reclamation's work is focused on being transparent and inclusive in terms of trying to hear from you about what solutions may work best. Some of the key provisions that we will be working on will be outlined in the presentations that we are going to be hearing from our technical experts. The funding that we have available will provide an incredible opportunity for us to respond to the urgent conditions that we have at the moment, but also to build resilience into the future. And that is where most of our focus will be on. We have a shared responsibility to be addressing these issues, and we look forward to getting your input and your applications for how we would be able to use the funding. Thank you very much for your participation. I'm very pleased to be here with the excellent team from Reclamation and look forward to the discussion today. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Assistant Secretary Trujillo. I am pleased to welcome the 24th Commissioner for the Bureau of Reclamation, Commissioner Camille Kalimlim-Tootin.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Camille Kalimlim-Tootin, the Commissioner of the Bureau of Reclamation, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you today. We look forward to hearing your ideas on how to best implement the Inflation Reduction Act. Just last November, when the bipartisan infrastructure law was signed by President Biden, we committed to a transparent, equitable, and timely implementation of the law. In fulfilling that pledge, we have proactively engaged with tribes and stakeholders to share information regarding implementation, and have held numerous information sessions, one-on-one discussions, shared information through congressional testimony and open forums, and have replied to hundreds of inquiries. And as of September 15th, Reclamation has announced and allocated $1.04 billion for 114 projects since the bipartisan infrastructure law was enacted. Today, we're making that same commitment to you for implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act. The IRA listening sessions represent a continuation of Reclamation's dedication to communicating and collaborating as we execute these transformational initiatives. While we're at the process of determining the details and soliciting input, I would like to outline the framework which we are considering specifically for the Colorado River. The funding will be done through establishing, among other funding mechanisms, a two-step process. Step 1 would include issuing a firm fixed price notification of funding, as well as a request for proposal to solicit short-term bridging system conservation opportunities. Step 2 would include issuing a request for proposal to solicit longer-term durable system efficiency projects with a priority to those long-term efficiency projects. Those longer-term projects could include initiatives as canal lining, re-regulating basins, ornamental and non-functional turf removal, salinity projects, water conservation, water recycling, and other infrastructure or on-the-ground activities. Projects could also be related to aquatic ecosystem restoration and impacts mitigation, crop water efficiency, rotational fallowing, and marginal land idling. Through these programs, we are looking to accrue new wet water for the benefit of the system. That is, water that stays in the system and is not diverted for consumptive use in the near future. We must smartly use this funding to prepare for the hydrologic reality of drought conditions in the Colorado River Basin and across the West to help sustain the system. The challenges we face require us to work together to develop creative and practical solutions, and these listening sessions are just one aspect of how we can work together. We look forward to working with you to ensure that the funds are allocated in a way that's timely, efficient, and effective. And you have my commitment to maintain this dialogue for the duration of the law's implementation. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Rob.
Thank you, Commissioner Tootin. We will now present a brief hydrology overview of the 17 Western states. I am privileged to introduce Reclamation's Chief Engineer, Dr. David Raff.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon. Wanted to just describe relatively quickly the backdrop in which the Inflation Reduction Act is being implemented, and that is one of continued drought in the Western United States. Next slide. This is the current map produced by the U.S. Drought Monitor. The U.S. Drought Monitor map in conjunction with a number of federal and non-federal agencies. What it shows is the current conditions, or the conditions this week, across the Western United States that remain mostly in severe to exceptional drought in much of the area, including many states where the entire state is in severe to exceptional drought. These conditions are actually slightly better than they have been for much of the summer and last year. However, this is quite a dramatic indication of the challenges facing Western water resources. Next slide. As I mentioned, that map looks a little bit better than it did in the past, and that is because of what was a productive monsoon season in terms of precipitation. On the left is the percent of average precipitation over the last 60 days, and those purples and greens, those cooler colors in the southwest are indicative of that productive monsoon season where we received well above average precipitation over that time period. Including some slightly cooler temperatures or not as warm in that same area, which is shown in the map on the right side. That monsoon season does come to an end here with the end of September. We certainly hope to see continued rainfall and also that these conditions help with soil moisture and other aspects of hydrology moving forward. Next slide. Looking to how the drought over the past years have affected water supply. This was the water supply forecast produced right at the start of the irrigation season, or near the start of the irrigation season. Those red dots in the southern part of the western United States are indicative that our water supply forecasts at the time were projecting 25 to 50% of average, and in many cases, even below 25% of average. Those are the conditions that did come to fruition, unfortunately, over the summer. Perhaps the only bright spot is in the Pacific Northwest. That did see near 100% and in a couple of limited cases above 100% of average in terms of the water supply forecast and what actually ran off. Next slide. So what do these conditions mean for reclamation and our partners in terms of water resource access? This is a teacup diagram for many of Reclamation's large systems across the West. These teacup diagrams show in blue the available water, how full the reservoirs are currently, and the red dashed lines are how full those reservoirs are historically on average on this date over the last 30 years. The story being across the southern and southwest, these reservoirs are extremely low relative to their long-term average. This is indicative of how much the drought has been affecting these systems. Again, in the Pacific Northwest, there are a couple reservoirs that are near average or even above average in a couple cases. But our systems are extremely stressed. Next slide. Looking to the future, unfortunately, the story does not yet look immediately better. We are entering into what is a very rare event, a triple dip La Nina, meaning a third year in a row with La Nina conditions. And what does that mean for the climate and water? Next slide. Unfortunately, the projections, the forecasts in terms of how that La Nina and what the precipitation looks like for the Western United States is not going to get us out of the situation we're in or come anywhere close to that. If you look at the left slide, this is the October, November, December NOAA Climate Prediction Center outlook for precipitation, where you see projections of below average precipitation for much of the southern United States and into the Southwest. And looking on the right side to January, February, and March for next year, 2023, this water year, that below average precipitation is expected to continue for the Southwest United States. So this is the backdrop by where ideally Mother Nature would provide us the precipitation to fill our reservoirs and provide the water resources. We are going to need to find additional solutions. And that is where we'll be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. So thank you for the opportunity to talk, and back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Dr. Raff. We will now receive an overview of the Inflation Reduction Act from our Director of Program and Budget, Mr. Bob Wolf.
Thank you, Rob, and for the opportunity to provide an overview of reclamation provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act. The act includes $6.6 billion in funding for the Department of the Interior, of which close to $4.6 billion is for four provisions specific to reclamation. $550 million for domestic water supply projects, $25 million for canal improvement projects, $4 billion for drought mitigation in reclamation states, and $12.5 million for emergency drought relief for tribes. I would also note that one of the department programs, environmental reviews and determinations, includes $150 million. Reclamation is one of 6 bureaus named in the act that would be eligible to receive funding. That program will be implemented by the Department of the Interior, where reclamation plans to be an active participant. Similar to the bipartisan infrastructure law, the department will execute these investments adhering to the administration's implementation priorities. Specific to reclamation, Congress provided the funds in lump sums for each category. As has been stated, we are here today seeking your inputs and thoughts. We are early in the process and are here today to listen. We understand that putting funding to work is critical. Your input today is an important next step in the process. I would like to briefly describe the 4 provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act specific to reclamation. First, the domestic water supply projects provides $550 million and is available through fiscal year 2031. The program is to serve disadvantaged communities or households that do not have reliable access to domestic water supply in a reclamation state or territory. This is a new program, and reclamation can provide up to 100% of the cost of planning, design, or construction. And I would emphasize that planning and design are part of what would be eligible for funding, as we would expect there would be needs out there where there are projects not ready for construction. Canal improvement projects receive $25 million, which is available through fiscal year 2031. This is a new program, and the authorizing legislation provides authority to cover water conveyance facilities with solar panels to generate renewable energy that increase water efficiency. The act also allows for pilot projects. Next is drought mitigation and reclamation states, $4 billion available through fiscal year 2026. And I think the commissioner did an excellent job of covering some of the initial steps we're taking with respect to that funding. I would note that in addition to the priority given Colorado River in the act itself, it does specify that other basins suffering similar long-term drought would be eligible for funding, and we will obviously be considering some of those other basins as we go through the process. The final category is emergency drought relief for tribes, for which $12.5 million is available through fiscal year 2026. The funding is for near-term drought relief actions to mitigate drought impacts for tribes impacted by the operation of a reclamation project. And I emphasize again, the words in the act itself, impacted by a reclamation water project. So that would be a factor that would need to be met for a tribe to be eligible. That concludes my remarks. Thanks, and back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf, and thank you to all of our leaders. At this time, we will move into the listening portion of this session, and we look forward to hearing from you. To provide a comment, please raise your hand using the hand icon at the top of the screen, or submit comments by sending an email to usbr.ir.actact@usbr.gov, and you see that on the screen there. If you're on a phone, please press *5 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. When called upon, please state your name and affiliation, and we respectfully ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes so we can hear from as many as possible today. And please feel free to submit your comments to us anytime during or after this session by sending an email to the address on the screen there, usbr.ir.act@usbr.gov. And again, thank you for your patience as we maximize the limited amount of time that we have today. And with that, let's get to your questions. Thank you so much. Chelsea, do we have any hands raised? Let's see here.
Yes, Rob. It looks
Yeah.
like Tina Shields. Please unmute yourself.
Fantastic. Welcome, Tina Shields. Tina Shields, can you hear us? No? Okay. Well, thank you for your patience also as we use the technology here.
Hi, are you able to hear me now?
Absolutely, loud and clear. Thank you so much, Ms. Shields. Please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Tina Shields, and while I serve as the water manager for the Imperial Irrigation District, I offer these comments today on behalf of the Family Farm Alliance as a member of the Alliance Advisory Committee. As you know, Western water managers are actively responding to extreme drought. This is forcing unprecedented actions by local water districts and agricultural producers as they react to profound water shortages. While the Colorado River Basin is certainly the focus of Inflation Reduction Act funding, I would be remiss not to mention the dire water supply challenges also facing California's Central Valley, the Klamath Basin, the Columbia River Basin and its tributaries in Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, the Rogue River Basin in Southern Oregon, and the Great Basin. My comments will mirror those transmitted by the FFA to Secretary Haaland and Commissioner Tootin on August 25th. The FFA was pleased to see Congress recognize the dire water supply situation by appropriating $4 billion in funding directly aimed at responding to the ongoing Western drought. We urge the Biden administration to move quickly to implement the Inflation Reduction Act and other available drought funding mechanisms to assist irrigation districts and growers and others with tangible benefits sooner rather than later. To result in meaningful progress, it's essential for the department to identify and share the criteria and key factors to be used in its funding decision-making. And we are appreciative of the early indications that Reclamation will have a multi-track process. The ability of agricultural producers to participate in voluntary compensated water conservation and reduction programs becomes more challenging, if not impossible, if not initiated and implemented immediately due to the timeframes associated with grower decision-making. The contracting, purchasing, and planting of crops for next year has already begun in my district and others in Southern California and Arizona, where large-scale winter agricultural production is based. The process and timing for distributing drought-related response funding must recognize and be responsive to this reality. We are already behind. Your process, selection criteria, and contracting should be simple and transparent and provide for upfront funding. Agricultural districts cannot afford to wait months, if not years, for expense reimbursements, and they certainly cannot contract with their growers to implement on-farm measures without easily accessible funding. The Family Farm Alliance encourages Reclamation to work with local water managers to fund plans that produce desired and defensible outcomes for all engaged, including generating wet water through programs that similarly account for community and environmental impacts on the largely rural agricultural areas. Reclamation should recognize the value of lost ag production to these communities and avoid actions that result in profound long-term economic damages or diminish a rural area's long-term capacity to produce food and fiber. There are a limited number of regions where the climate, soil, and open space allow for highly productive ag, and we must protect those lands to ensure that a water supply solution does not lead to an even worse food shortage problem. Similarly, ag should not be the only sector targeted. Existing compacts, laws, agreements, and established priority systems must be respected to avoid protracted litigation. And while the Family Farm Alliance appreciates the more recent municipal conservation action goals announced by certain larger entities, there must be more serious progress made to address urban conservation and reuse through some of this funding, with a more aggressive focus on outdoor landscaping. It's hard to imagine how any non-functional turf can be considered a beneficial use when contemplating fallowing or reduced production on ag fields that provide food for the world and are at the core of these rural agrarian economies. Protecting Western ag regions and their rural communities and economies provides for a healthy aquatic environment, which not only benefits the West, it benefits the nation. For that reason, our members at the Family Farm Alliance are stepping up to provide solutions to ensure the longer-term viability of their basins and communities. The Act can provide the economic means necessary to take these voluntary actions and provide immediate, measurable protections for the water supply system. We appreciate the opportunity to speak today and look forward to working with Reclamation and hearing more from others. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight and support. Thank you so much. Chelsea, I'm seeing some hands here. Sarah Porterfield, I see a hand raised. Ms. Porterfield, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. I am Sarah Porterfield, Western Water Policy Advisor with Trout Unlimited. The IRA presents a vital opportunity for Reclamation to update its mission to include efforts to respond to climate-driven effects on water while helping to ensure water security for people and the environment. With IRA funding, we must avoid temporary band-aids or drought profiteering and instead incentivize actions that promote adaptation and build long-term resilience. To implement such projects as quickly and efficiently as possible, IRA funding should be available to fund all phases of a project from planning and design work through construction and monitoring. To ensure funding helps communities in the Colorado River Basin adapt to the climate conditions that will occur going forward, we recommend the funding focus on agricultural upgrades and innovation, with water savings going to useful system stabilization and adequate water measurement, municipal conservation activities at scale, system efficiencies, flexible water management strategies for tribes and other users that contribute to basin-wide water security, environmental solutions that secure the functionality of the system now and going forward, including nature-based solutions, forest management and restoration to protect watersheds and water supply reservoirs from wildfires, and habitat and ecosystem restoration to benefit watershed health and avoid conflicts. Here are a couple of examples of the kinds of environmental solutions we're envisioning. In the Price River Basin in central Utah, the 2012 Sealy fire caused a loss of vegetation and an increase in flood events, which caused Miller Creek to deeply incise its channel, with resulting poor water quality and degradation of riparian habitat. A diverse range of partners began constructing beaver dam analogs, or BDAs, in 2016 to allow the stream channel to rebuild to its original elevation, reconnect to its floodplain, and increase habitat complexity. This work helps to dramatically decrease the flash floods and water quality issues that follow the kinds of large wildfires we're seeing throughout the West. These restored riparian areas also create a natural fire break because they have more saturated soils and green vegetation, with the potential to slow or stop future large burns. And benefits from such a project also extend beyond those connected to wildfires and help mitigate and combat the hotter, drier summers that come with a changing climate. In addition, the proposed Sage Creek Restoration Project in Southwest Wyoming is a model multi-stakeholder landscape scale drought resilience project that will retain sediment in the Sage Creek headwaters while improving aquatic habitat and increasing drought resilience for important habitat, and which will help mitigate the Flaming Gorge releases in response to drought conditions. This will be achieved by the installation of over 200 BDAs and aggregation structures, which in combination with riparian reseeding and planting will restore 450 acres of riparian and wetland habitat. These are just a couple examples of how environmental solutions secure the functionality of the system now and into the future. I would like to thank Reclamation for providing the opportunity to present today, and the NGO community looks forward to working with Reclamation and other stakeholders to put IRA funds to use for climate resilience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your insight and support. Just a reminder, if you do have a comment, please raise your hand using the hand icon at the top of the screen, or you can submit your comments by sending an email as well, and we'll address that. Okay, Chelsea, do you see any other hands
Looks
here?
like our next person is Jen Dumas.
Fantastic. Welcome. Can you hear us, ma'am?
Good morning, everyone. My name's Jen Dumas, and I am the attorney for the Hickory Apache Nation, and I've been asked to provide some comments on the nation's behalf. I just want to start with applauding the attention to the Colorado River and the extreme drought that we're facing right now. To the nation, it's important that we recognize that the effects of the drought are felt throughout the basin, and that the upper basin is not passed over in allocating funding to address the effects of drought in the Colorado River Basin. This funding represents an opportunity to significantly impact the health of the river, and the nation is committed to making sure that the opportunity is not squandered, that to the extent that immediate needs require compensation for short-term reductions in use, that those sorts of programs are carefully controlled to avoid drought profiteering. Funding for tribal projects needs to be prioritized, and that funding needs to be easy to access with simple application standards and low to no cost share requirements. And the nation wants to highlight the need for us all to work together to make sure that this funding makes a lasting impact to the health of the river, focusing on long-term solutions as opposed to short-term goals. It sounds like a lot of money, but it can quickly be used if we focus on these sort of, I think Sarah mentioned, Band-Aid solutions. The nation is committed to pushing for more long-term solutions that will have a lasting effect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We really appreciate your insight and support. Okay, Chelsea, we see I see a hand raised, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Hayes, your mic is turned on now. Can you hear us? Troy Hayes? Okay. Well, we can certainly circle back. I also see Shawcroft, Gene Shawcroft. Gene Shawcroft, can you hear me? Okay.
Jean, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Fantastic,
Yes.
loud and clear, sir. Thank you. Please proceed.
Wonderful. I feel like I'm a little child with a tin can and a string on
No,
some
no.
of this technology.
Thank you, sir. We're all figuring it out at the same time. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you. My name is Gene Shawcroft. I'm Utah's Commissioner to the Colorado River, and I would like to express appreciation for your leadership regarding the challenges facing the Colorado River Basin and the Western drought. Utah is very interested in ensuring that the $4 billion in funding and authorities provided by the Inflation Reduction Act have a lasting impact and are directed towards the areas of greatest concern. The state of Utah believes federal dollars should be directed toward permanent solutions that provide a generational investment rather than temporary fixes. We also believe that long-term meaningful solutions to our urgent water challenges must include restoring and preserving the Great Salt Lake. This lake provides a critical link in the Pacific Flyway for over 330 species of birds. It contributes $1.3 billion to Utah's economy, 14% of the world's magnesium, 40% of the world's brine shrimp eggs, and sulfate potash, which is an essential fertilizer. We believe programs that optimize water efficiencies in the agricultural sector must be funded, with roughly 70% of Utah's Colorado River allocation used for agriculture, and a similar percentage of the diverted water in the Great Salt Lake watershed. I am confident that enhanced agricultural optimization will make a key difference in mitigating the threats to our Colorado River supply. Programs such as Utah Agricultural Water Optimization Task Force seek to preserve agricultural production while reducing consumptive use of water through innovative, durable, and science-based irrigation efficiency measures. The Utah legislature has appropriated $76 million to agricultural water optimization, a commitment that could be enhanced with federal support. And finally, we support investing in programs that incentivize sustainable, durable conservation measures. The state has reduced its overall per capita use by more than 20% over the last 2 decades through successful conservation measures. This year, the Utah legislature approved nearly $370 million for statewide water saving initiatives, federal matching funds that encourage enhanced measurement, advance the utilization of technology, support watershed restoration, fund turf buyback programs, and expand the use of secondary water meters. Activities that are all underway in Utah will collectively move us toward our ultimate goal of reducing overall water use statewide. We will submit some written comments as well, but thank you very much for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you.
Sir, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight and support. Thank you. I think we're going to try and circle back to Mr. Hayes. Troy Hayes, can you hear us now? Okay. Well, we will keep him top of mind and we'll try and circle back. Chelsea, do we see any other hands raised there?
Yes, Rob. The first hand I see is, pardon if I mess up this name, Edelin. I'm going to allow your mic. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Absolutely, loud and clear. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thanks so much. My name is Edelin Kejo. I'm with the Nature Conservancy. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input today on IRA implementation. I'd like to echo the good comments made by Sarah Porterfield earlier, and recognizing the urgency of the situation that we're facing across the West. The Conservancy asks Reclamation to use IRA funding to incentivize actions that respond to the underlying problems, that promote adaptation, and that build long-term resilience with a focus on helping communities, agriculture, and the environment adapt. We'd like to see Reclamation adopt a broad definition of the public entities that includes the ability of those entities to pass funding through to nonprofits and NGOs, and to use this funding to help provide capacity. For many entities, we know that the challenge of applying for or managing a federal grant is significant due to capacity constraints. And NGOs like the Conservancy can help get IRA funding to the ground by supporting projects, for example, by helping manage the nuts and bolts of a project while also ensuring its environmental benefits. And we'd encourage Reclamation and other public entities to view us as a partner in getting IRA money to good multi-benefit projects on the ground. And along these lines, we'd encourage Reclamation and public entities to also consider providing funding for capacity to manage and implement these grants. We'd also like to ensure funding incentivizes adaptation and long-term resilience for communities, agriculture, and the environment. And along those lines, the Conservancy asks Reclamation to use funding to support projects that check multiple boxes. In other words, projects need to solve water security challenges, support tribal nations, and benefit environmental values. Every drop needs to do double or triple duty. So I very much agree with the types of projects that Sarah Porterfield mentioned, but the Conservancy would also like to highlight our interest in seeing Reclamation support projects like agricultural upgrades and innovation, like the Maybell diversion structure improvements the Conservancy is working on with rural irrigators on the lower Yampa in Colorado to upgrade outdated irrigation infrastructure while also improving flows in critical habitat for federally endangered fish. The Conservancy is also working with partners across the West to test innovative agricultural drought resilience strategies by providing technical and financial assistance for early stage projects that reduce water use and improve water management and demonstrate drought resilience and adaptation. And then also on implementation of projects with ranchers and researchers to determine how producers can use less water while still improving river flows and maintaining thriving agricultural operations. We'd also recommend focusing on environmental solutions that support and protect the functionality of the system. For example, in Wyoming, the Conservancy is working with private landowners on the Upper Green to restore wet meadows in order to improve the land's ability to capture and retain water through low-tech natural infrastructure installations. We're also part of a collaborative effort called the Forest Restoration Initiative to restore Arizona's ponderosa pine forest on portions of 4 national forests, in order to reduce destructive wildfire, improve the forest's ability to capture and retain water, and make the watersheds in the communities that rely on them more resilient. The Conservancy also recommends prioritizing flexible water management strategies for tribes and other users that contribute to basin-wide water security for all water users, including the environment. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide input today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We appreciate your insight and support. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Hayes, we see you trying to get on. It may be better if you call from your phone or try to reconnect, and we'll certainly circle back to you. In the meantime, let's go to Ed. Is it Jarek? I don't want to mispronounce your last name. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. My name is Ed Garrick. I'm with the irrigation.
Derek, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Welcome and please proceed.
Thank you for having me. I'm with the Irrigation Electrical Districts Association of Arizona. We are a collection of 24 IDs, EDs, and municipalities with a strong focus on agricultural purpose. I have some concerns regarding some of the stuff that was said earlier today with the ability for other basins to tap into the $4 billion. As I read the IRA, the primary purpose is to support the Colorado River Basin. We are in the middle of a 20+ year drought. I'm not sure which other basins are experiencing a similar situation. So as I see primary, I see that as taking precedence. I know $4 billion seems like a lot of money, but it won't go as far as people would hope or we need. So for example, the power replacement costs from lost hydropower in the basin are the equivalent of $100 million, not only for CRSP, but also $100 million at hydro. We'd like that to be considered as an impact for every acre foot of water that does not flow through Glen Canyon Dam or Hoover Dam. We're talking roughly 400 kilowatt hours of lost generation. So we would like the power replacement cost considered with regards to that $4 billion. And finally, I've heard not only on the tribal session, but today, a reference to drought profiteering. I'm not sure why that is being stated. We're all in the same boat. We're looking to survive a persistent and dramatic drought. Lastly, I'd like to see not only fair and equitable conservation efforts by the upper and lower basin. We cannot continue to rely on the backs of Arizonans to take the drastic cuts that we have. And year to date, we're looking at close to 700,000 acre feet per year of conservation and 2 to 4 million acre foot. And in addition to that, burdening Arizona will be dire to our state. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your insight and support as well. Okay. Let's go to next is Leslie, and I'm glad we've got a lot of hands raised. That's fantastic. We've got plenty of time. Leslie, can you hear us? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Fantastic. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thanks. My name's Leslie James. I'm Executive Director of the Colorado River Energy Distributors Association, or CREDA. CREDA is a nonprofit association of the firm electric service customers of the Colorado River Storage Project. So our members include about 133 entities, including tribes, munis, co-ops, political subdivisions, state entities. And I don't plan to provide some very specific comments today. I want to thank Reclamation for offering this listening session. I think it's good for all of the varied interests and stakeholders to be able to hear each other and learn from each other. Very clearly, this long-standing extreme drought is having significant impacts on a lot of entities, a lot of people in the communities in the Southwest. There are 53 tribal entities that are electric service customers of the Colorado River Storage Project that are certainly in some of the most disadvantaged areas of this country. And we just want to encourage consideration of those resources that are being impacted, particularly the federal power program and the federal Colorado River Storage Project. We have been seeing impacts directly and indirectly, and are very encouraged by the ability to continue to work with Reclamation and the other stakeholders to take advantage of some funding that the Congress has provided to provide not just some stopgap Band-Aids, as I've heard them called, but some long-term structural support for this program. So I guess I'll just leave it at that for today, but thank you for allowing the opportunity to provide comments. And we look forward to working with Reclamation as you proceed to implement the IRA. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We appreciate your insight and support. Thank you so much. Next, let's go to Anna Schwab. Anna, can you hear us?
Hi there, can you all hear me?
Absolutely, Anna, loud and clear. Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I am Anna Schwab. I am Director of Government Affairs for Best and Krieger, and we represent several public agencies in California that rely on Colorado River water. For all Colorado River water users, it is critical that the Bureau allocate and invest drought funding for water conservation as soon as possible. Every week that passes makes the hill that we have to climb steeper. A key area of investment that should be included is increasing the incentives per acre foot to expand voluntary water conservation throughout the users. We additionally ask that, as others on the call have today, that investments be made on long-term measures as well, including long-term water conservation measures. Many Californian communities also rely on water from the Central Valley region, which is also coping with historic drought conditions. We hope that the Bureau continues to invest in projects that strengthen these communities' drought resilience. Lastly, as mentioned earlier, the Inflation Reduction Act provided $550 million for the Bureau for connecting disadvantaged communities to reliable household water supplies. And we specifically ask and hope that one area of focus for this funding will be assisting communities in the Eastern Coachella Valley who currently rely on well water contaminated with arsenic. Thank you all very much for your time and for reviewing each of these matters with detail.
Anna, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight and support. Thank you. Okay, let's try and go back to Mr. Hayes. Mr. Troy Hayes, please unmute yourself. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh, fantastic. Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Somehow we got that to work out, I guess.
We did it, sir. We did it. Thank you so much.
So I'm Troy Hayes. I'm the Water Services Director for the City of Phoenix. And we appreciate the Bureau's leadership, especially with respect to the infrastructure investments. This funding, we hope, will help communities like ours work through the drought conditions in the West. We're hoping to work with the Bureau to help solve some of our issues that we're working on. But again, we're just appreciative of the leadership and working with the Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, thanks for your patience. We really appreciate your insight and support. Okay, next, let's go to Paul Hendricks. Paul, can you hear us? Please unmute yourself. Paul, can you hear us? Okay. Paul, we'll come back to you. Okay, we'll come back to you, Paul. Let's go to Kate Ryan. Kate, can you hear us? Okay. Technology is our friend. What about Ella Benson? Or Elle Benson? Is it Elle Benson? Please try and unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Welcome. Please proceed.
Great, thank you. So I'm Elle Benson, the Southwestern Water Program Coordinator at Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership based in New Mexico. Thank you for putting together these listening sessions and providing opportunity for input. So in New Mexico, there are multiple pre-existing programs that could facilitate investments in drought mitigation strategies as outlined in Reclamation's categories of funding under IRA. These include things like the River Stewardship Program, the Water Trust Board, the Rio Grande Water Fund, the Public Irrigation Infrastructure Improvements Project, and the Asequian Community Ditch Infrastructure Fund. Funding in these existing programs can help leverage state and partner resources, expand delivery capacity, and ensure alignment with regional priorities and co-benefits. We also ask that the Bureau employ flexibility in implementing this funding. Communities throughout New Mexico have expressed difficulty in navigating existing reclamation funding opportunities, securing adequate matching resources, and are experiencing contracting delays in receiving awarded funds. Reclamation should consider maintaining transparency in this process while maximizing flexibility in terms of getting these funds to the ground. And then finally, the Rio Grande in New Mexico is facing historic drought conditions and ran dry this year for the first time in decades, as high as Albuquerque. Farmers and other communities in the state are facing significant cutbacks on the river and grappling with declining groundwater supplies and stream flows. So providing additional clarity on how these IRA funds could be made available to other watersheds outside of the Colorado River Basin would be extremely helpful. Thank you again for putting this together and for taking feedback. Appreciate it.
Elle, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight. Thank you, Elle. Next, let's go to Becky Zisser. Becky, can you hear us? Okay. We'll try and come back.
Can you hear me?
Oh, absolutely, Becky. We have you loud and clear. Please proceed.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm Becky Zisser with the Santa Clara Valley Water District, which serves as the water wholesaler to nearly 2 million people in Santa Clara County in the South San Francisco Bay Area. On behalf of the millions of urban water users in the Bay Area who are taking significant steps to reduce water usage, we'd like to encourage Reclamation to make some of the $4 billion in drought funding available for long-term drought resiliency programs that are reducing demand for water supplies in all basins experiencing severe drought. I appreciate what Commissioner Tootin said at the beginning about the desire to incentivize projects that serve long-term system durability, including water recycling and efficiency projects. And we strongly urge Reclamation to support these projects in all basins experiencing this drought, not just the Colorado. This drought is placing a significant strain on all water users in the West, including in the Bay Area. And we believe that this funding should help promote conservation as a way of life throughout the West, as well as promoting projects that help us diversify our water supply portfolios to become more drought resilient in the long term. So as you move this funding out the door, we encourage Reclamation to implement these provisions as broadly as possible. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today, and we really appreciate all that you're doing to get this funding out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We appreciate your insight. Next, let's go to John Rickenbach. John, can you hear us? Okay. John, try and unmute yourself and see if we can't hear you. Okay. We'll certainly try and circle back. Paul Hendricks, can you hear us, sir? Can you unmute yourself and hear us? Okay. And let's try Shane Leonard. Shane Leonard, can you hear us? Okay, do you see the issue, Chelsea?
Their mics have been allowed. They need to unmute themselves to be able to speak.
Okay. All right, well, let's try Shane Leonard. If you could try and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Welcome, and please proceed.
Thank you very much. I will try not to take too much time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Shane Leonard. I am the General Manager for Roosevelt Water Conservation District. We represent approximately 40,000 acres in eastern Maricopa County and the Phoenix metro area. Likewise, I serve as the agricultural representative to Arizona's Reconsultation Committee, which is tasked with addressing the current issues on the Colorado River, as well as in a post-2026 regulatory area. Several of my points have already been addressed by previous speakers, so I won't belabor those points. But one of the things I would like Reclamation to understand, as I've stated prior to, that relative to cuts, next year will be the first year that no Colorado River water will be delivered into the central Arizona irrigation districts. This has not occurred since the first water was actually delivered into the CAP system with the onset of those deliveries. And so we are experiencing the drought not in terms other than actual reality. And so I hope that as we move through what we're doing, not just with IRA, but with infrastructure, projects that can benefit those types of users who have been completely cut off are contemplated. We do also believe that given Arizona adding 37 feet of elevation to the system, should be taken into consideration as to what others have or have not done, and believe the Bureau has the opportunity to provide equity on what we might do for future cuts related to that. But my question and my hope is that the Bureau and others can answer the salient question of who qualifies for projects under IRA, because currently it is somewhat unclear as to who and what and how you qualify. I will, for example, suggest Pinal County, which is in between Maricopa and Pima County, so the areas of Phoenix and Tucson, relative to, I believe, we understand that there is a third bucket of money that they could access for issues related to public health and ecosystem maintenance. That situation comes up because of the fallowed acres that have now been put into place. We're talking about roughly twice the surface area square mile wise of the Salton Sea. And while we recognize the Salton Sea is a necessary component of maintaining, again, public health and ecosystem responsibilities in California, once again, in central Arizona, we're experiencing that right now. So understanding how and where those districts might qualify simply for maintaining, for example, dust control issues for public health and ecosystem management would be helpful. And finally, related to the energy concerns that Mr. Gierak and Ms. James talked about earlier, we echo those sentiments very strongly. Those irrigation districts that have been able to maintain supplies have been relying upon the fact that, for good or for bad, our best and most reliable resource is groundwater. And while we aren't looking forward to paying those costs, they get tremendously more expensive when you're talking about the loss of hydro generation on the river and decisions that are being made hydrology wise that seemingly aren't connected to what the effects of those decisions are going to be on the hydro generation side. And so again, echoing Mr. Gierak and Ms. James' comments about what we can do either under IRA or other areas to help either offset cost or for cost stabilization or replacement energy supplies would be greatly helpful. So again, appreciate the time and the effort it has taken to bring us all together, and thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much. We really appreciate your insight and support. We've got a little bit of time left, but we are committed to hearing from you. So we're just going to keep pressing on here. Kate Ryan, can you unmute yourself, please?
Dave, I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Please proceed.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm Kate Ryan. I am the Senior Staff Attorney and Director of Programs for the Colorado Water Trust. And what we do is to work statewide to secure flows for Colorado rivers, relying on temporary and permanent water right transactions. And we frequently do this in partnership with the state's Colorado Water Conservation Board and its in-stream flow protection section. We have been in business for over 20 years, and I've seen firsthand that permanent acquisitions and changes of use of water rights to accomplish environmental flows approved in water court are one of the very best ways to add new wet water that benefits river systems in large volumes. And we're able to do this in partnership with water users and in ways that complement various water users, whether they're agricultural, municipal, or industrial. And in our current conversations with potential project partners, we've all been reflecting that there's a bit of uncertainty over whether Inflation Reduction Act funds will be available for permanent water right acquisitions that add water to the system. So we encourage clarification from Bureau of Reclamation that yes, funds can be used for permanent acquisitions, and we encourage block grants that public entities could use for the purpose of permanent water right acquisitions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We really appreciate your insight. We've only got a few. Okay, we've got some hands raised. John Rickenbach, can you hear us? John, can you hear us? Okay, we'll try and circle right back to you. Shane, can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself? Shane Leonard? Okay.
My apologies. I think my hand was still up from before. I don't have
Oh,
anything to
okay.
add,
No,
so.
no problem. No problem. Thank you so much. John Rickenbach, can you hear us? Okay, we'll try and circle back. Darren, let me see. Darren Simon, can you hear us? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
fantastic, Darren. Please proceed.
Yes, I'm Darren Simon with the San Diego County Water Authority. And just as I've heard other speakers point out, it's clear that as we look at additional conservation, that there'll be environmental impacts related to those. And I just want to speak up for the Salton Sea in the Imperial Valley, because if there's going to be conservation in this region, there will be impacts to the Salton Sea. And the Salton Sea is an important part of the Colorado River Basin system. And it's really important that some portion of this funding look at the Salton Sea and again, the impacts to this particular region. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your insight. And we have time for one final comment. But again, you've got the email address that's on the screen there. And you can always, we're always open to hearing from you. So, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end as well. And Paul Hendricks, please unmute yourself. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Oh, yes, Paul, you've got the final comment for today. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you very much. The connection with hydro and our green initiative, low carbon, should be factored into all decisions. Secondarily, the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority in Arizona functions with these kinds of funds in a state revolving loan format, which is the most efficient way to use funds. And their opportunities for actually doing projects versus just studying and thinking have produced a lot. I work with small districts that are up in the mountains in Arizona. We do have access to some of the C.C. Cragen water, but would need federal funds in order to deliver that. Otherwise, we're dealing with shallow groundwater, perched water, and geological challenges in fractured formation. So we are a disadvantaged entity, the Pine Strawberry Water Improvement District, and would look forward to working with senators and our Water Infrastructure Finance Authority to get funding for specific projects which have already been planned. And Senator Sinema said that they were very encouraged and would like to be sure that these funds go through the Arizona Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, because they provide interim funding, planning funding, and then construction funding, where the USDA, they only provide funding after the project is done, which creates a cash flow issue. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much. And we're going to try and circle back to Mr. Rickenbach. I know he waited patiently. John Rickenbach, can you hear us? Please try and unmute yourself, and you'll have the final comment. Okay. All right. Well, again, you can submit comments through the email there. We tried. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for your participation and support. We are committed to leveraging the best available science and remaining transparent throughout this process. And our purpose today was to listen to you so that we can work in a collaborative manner and make informed decisions going forward. And we really appreciate all of your insight and comments. Please note that our website and email are on the screen there, and a recording of this presentation and the slides will be available on our website. And updated information will always be available on our website throughout this process. Our contact info is in the chat and on the screen. And again, we welcome your comments. Again, on behalf of the Bureau of Reclamation, thank you. Thank you for attending today's listening session. Please take care.